Hello, 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 and welcome to our final episode of 2020 at TipTea. I'm Robert, and here with me today is the lovely, the voluptuous Layla Ziadich.
You just called me voluptuous. I'll take it.
I wish I could be voluptuous.
Yeah, you skinny queens.
So funny story, since we're talking about skinny and just how fucking skinny I am. I was watching this show today, the season finale of the show called The Undoing. And they're like little kid, the cops, like the kid got kidnapped, and they were describing the son's like demographic shit. And mind you, this kid is like, he's got to be in like 4th or 5th grade. And they said like, white Caucasian, weighs 110 pounds. And I was like, I weigh 115 pounds. I'm kind of disgusted. I'm kind of disgusted with myself, but how are we?
Doing great. Feeling great. Not as great as you though.
Yeah, I'm a little tipsy. Did you hear the news about Rudy Giuliani?
COVID? Sure did. Thank you, Twitter. Keeping me up on all the facts. I mean,
I love it.
You know what I love more? I love 3 things. Him sneezing or blowing his nose into a napkin and then proceeding to rub said napkin and snot all over his face on public television. Mm-hmm. Him sweating so much that his hairspray dye starts bleeding down his face on live television. And him farting during one of his court appearances during a live testimony on live television.
Wait, did he really fart?
Yes, he did.
No.
Yes, he did. And you know, I don't know if we're really playing it by whoever smelt it dealt it, because he didn't even flinch. But the girl sitting next to him, she like definitely like paid attention to the moment, you know. She gave it the attention we all needed as like confirmation that it happened. So thank you to her. Shout out to her.
You know, I have been bad, like ever since the election, and like, you know, we found out that Joe won. Yay us. I've just
Joe and Kamala, can't forget the Queen.
Oh yes, I mean, we cannot forget the Queen. But like ever since they won, I've just been like, I haven't been paying attention to the news or anything. I mean, I've just kind of just like I've been like I blocked it out. And like Tim was playing Trump's speech the other day in the other room, and I'm like sitting here watching something, and I got so pissed off. I'm like, why are you listening to this shit? And he's like, you know, we need to know what he's saying, which I totally get. Like, you do need to hear, but at what point do we just like say that this shit is garbage? Like, and you're giving more energy to it by listening to it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from and where Tim's coming from. My mom always says, like, it's very important to always know what others are saying.
Yes, I agree.
So you're aware. Otherwise, I feel like you're living in a blissfully ignorant life. Not that I'm saying that you are, because I also totally want to take the news and the negativity of the media outside of my life, because it's so, like, toxic, really. It's a lot of negativity. There's no like good news at 9, like to get your day started with. It's always like for example, I woke up this morning, and I don't know if anybody has the Citizen app, but I have it here, and there were 3 shootings last night, all within like 5-mile radius of where I live, and they were all deadly shootings. And it was just like, fuck, man. Like, I don't want to wake up to that, but it's also good to be aware. I just won't let my mom know what that app is. So we'll make sure that she avoids this.
Won't believe it out.
Straight up move out of, straight up move out of the city.
Oh, fuck. So do we want to dive right into the thick of things for tonight?
I think we should. Yeah.
Okay. So for our listeners, today we are going to recap 2020. We're going to give you the best, the worst, and like what we're hopeful for the future. So without further ado, do we want to, you could start with your, what are they? Picks for best movies of 2020.
Oh, sure. I mean, I didn't really go too crazy on
I didn't either.
Because honestly, I'm kind of a creature of old habit and it's my comfort zone. So I do tend to just, unless it's like going out to see a movie, which there wasn't much of this year. I can't really remember the last movie I went and saw in the theater. Then I don't really watch new movies. I watch the tried and trues, but I did see Parasite, and I thought it was like one of the most genius things that I've ever watched.
I don't think that was really 2020, but
it was a winner for 2020.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
So I'm just going to count it for myself.
That's fine. I
think that's also when I watched it. So there you go.
So for movies for me, I had a couple. I picked two scary movies because I did like the 31 days of scary shit. So
yes,
anything new that I saw this year because COVID was because of because I had to watch 31 plus horror movies. So the first one, and I know I've already said, I already gave this props, and by the way, on this list, I will have some kind of, repeats from our piping hot section. You know what I mean? But
totally, yeah.
So if anybody who is listening to this regularly, just deal with it. But I know I've said this, but the movie Host, where those kids have a seance on a Zoom call, which I mean is the perfect recipe for a disaster. What could go wrong? That was an excellent scary movie. And then I picked this movie called The Invisible Man with that what's her name from The Handmaid's Tales?
Elizabeth Moss?
Yes, Elizabeth. Yes, she's Elizabeth Moss.
Who is a Scientologist, and I like to throw that out there for people who like
what?
Yeah, sorry to break it to you, but that show,
what?
The irony of, I don't know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. She's a follower.
Oh my God. Okay, so I totally got to look into that now.
Don't, because it'll just ruin it for you.
So I picked The Invisible Man.
Suspension of belief there that she's possibly a good person, but maybe she is. I don't know. Go on.
I mean, I'm sure she's good, but she's probably a little kooky. But
I don't know. I personally saw that Lisa Remini documentary or docuseries.
I need to watch that.
So I'm just kind of like, hard to tell. Hard to tell.
I need to watch. I love her. The girl that did that documentary you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love her. But this movie, The Invisible Man, it is about an abusive white man that goes invisible and terrorizes his ex-girlfriend or wife. I forget. I think it's just his girlfriend. And nobody believes that he's invisible, obviously. And she has a nervous fucking breakdown. And, I just think there's so much symbolism in this movie. A crazy white guy, causing terror in the world. It just spoke to me, especially in 2020.
Absolutely.
And then, so I know I only had two picks for best movies, but I really went in with television. But I will let you
start us off then. No, you start us off.
Okay.
I feel like you probably got a good list going, so you can go.
I do. So my top pick for the year 2020 is the show I May Destroy You by Michaela Cole. And this show follows a London writer. Her name's Arabella, and she gets sexually assaulted after having her drink spiked at a bar. And the show kind of navigates the days following the assault as she kind of processes that and, you know, tries to hold her rapist accountable. And while I will say it is a trigger warning, what makes the show like amazing is that Michaela Cole was able to take something that is so deep and heavy, like sexual assault, and she was able to give like viewers, I believe, like a clever, sharp, and like even funny, as crazy as it sounds, take on, you know, her processing her trauma. And I just think that this is a show that everybody needs to watch. I mean, it is heavy at times, but it's definitely worth it. And I commend HBO for giving her the platform to share this shit because it's needed. And yeah, it was amazing. My honorable mentions, I've got a few. So The Haunting of Bly Manor. Did you watch that?
No, I did not. I like to stay away from all things scary.
Okay. Oh yeah. I remember that.
You couldn't talk me into it.
So The Haunting of Bly Manor is the follow-up to like the Haunting anthology series thing that they got going on. And I will say that while it didn't give me like as many scares as the previous season did, it definitely gave us like emotional tension. And I think that was like the star of the show. And fucking Flora in that show made me want to, you know, have babies. And I'm definitely not about to have a baby, but if I was, like, that kid in that show was amazing. What else? We have Raised by Wolves, which was like a sci-fi show by like Ridley Scott was the executive producer of that show. And if you are a horror fan by any means, if you like the Alien movies or anything like sci-fi, this show does not disappoint. It is visually stunning. It's mysteriously sexy. And I've never wanted to be like an android so bad. So yeah, check it out. If you like sci-fi, if you like creepy shit, I think that's a good show. All right. And then what else do I got? The Queen's Gambit. I just watched that last night and finished it today, literally today.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Did you watch it?
Nope.
Please do.
It takes me a long time to warm up to things. I will. I said, I probably watched Parasite like 9 months after it was released. But
so the Queen's Gambit is based off of a book by the same name from Walter Tivy, and the show kind of just covers like this orphan girl who is exceptionally well at chess. And I will say, like, as a person that fucking hates chess and has no desire, no will or knowledge, like, to be able to play chess, like, I was addicted. I finished it in basically a day. Tim, who's not really a big TV person, was like enamored by it. So we watched it together. I will say that the mom in the show is the reason why nobody should give me a child, because
okay.
She's literally like the worst, like enabling mother in the, like, she makes the mom from Mean Girls look like, you know, child's play.
I'm a cool mom.
Yes. Like she is the cool mom. She's the new cool mom. She took the trophy for cool mom and ran with it.
So if you're going to pitch that show to me, why do I need to watch it? Because this is your opportunity to really hook somebody in.
Okay, so
Give me the
why
hits here.
you should watch it. It's visually stunning. It deals with you. This girl is fucked up. She was in an orphanage. She got adopted by this family that, was problematic as fuck. She is exceptionally well at chess, and literally that's the only thing that she's good at, and she runs with it. And, she's addicted to drugs. She is an alcoholic, and just like it was great. It's like, yeah, it's just, I cling to fucked up things. And I just thought it was very clever, very funny. The acting was great. The girl, Elizabeth or Beth in the show, her name is Anya Taylor-Joy. She is gorgeous. Beautiful. Like, beautiful. Not that alone would sell a show, but she's just beautiful. But yeah, you would love this show. You like dark humor.
Yeah. I do love dark humor. That actually is like, I think what I typically lean towards when I'm looking at something.
Let me just I've got this just came into my mind. I've got the perfect selling point. So there's this black girl in her orphanage that was with her, and she would call her Cracker. So obviously,
Jesus. Wait, is that one girl that you posted something about?
Yes, Jolene. Yes, Jolene. Yes, we love Jolene. Watching a show that makes you root for a girl in an orphanage getting her drugs is, come on, that alone sells the show.
It does.
And then lastly, season 4 of The Fucking Crown.
But that we're gonna have to get into.
Yes, we will be diving deep into that separately. But I just want to say that the reason why I started watching the show was because I have an obsession with Gillian Anderson.
Okay. Wait, isn't Gillian Anderson that
X-Files
workout girl? Oh. Not who I thought that was.
No, I know what you're talking about.
I was thinking the trainer from The Greatest Loser.
Yes.
Jillian Michaels?
Michaels, yeah.
Whoops.
Okay, but season 4 of The Crown, so her playing Margaret Thatcher was okay, people have been telling me, Robert, you need to watch The Crown. It's a fucking amazing show. You need to do it. And I was just putting it off. And then Gillian Anderson's in the show, and I'm like, fuck, I got to watch this shit now. So I binged the first 3 seasons within a week, and then started watching season 4, which just came out. And what more can you say about a show that is already just fucking sensational? You have an interesting topic, the royal family. At least for me, I am so enamored by them and just all that shit. And then, dare I say, the most perfect casting when it comes to a television show. You've got Olivia Colman playing the Queen. You've got Helena Bonham Carter playing Princess Margaret. And then you have
iconic
Gillian Anderson playing Margaret Thatcher. You have Titan on Titan on Titan, just mega Titans in their own rights, just all performing together. It's brilliant to me.
An all-star cast, essentially.
Yeah. And can I give you my Margaret Thatcher impersonation?
Please do. I wish you would.
Okay, hold on. Let me wet my whistle a little. Your Majesty,
Oh my God, that sounded like Voldemort.
I mean, it really is. It's like...
Wait, now do that same voice, but say Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
Yep, same voice, same actor.
But she was talking like that, and I was just fucking living for it. And
yes,
obviously the season was iconic because this was the introduction of Princess Diana, who we fucking stan on this show. Prince Charles, I will kick you in your big fucking nuts, you sack of shit.
Jesus.
Camilla, you're a fucking lizard. But we will dive really deep into this. We're going to do an episode about this. So yeah, I don't want to get too in depth in my feelings about it, but Princess Di was treated dirty. Yeah, and we're going to talk about it.
All right. So I've got a few of the best television shows. The reason I have a lot of television shows, I feel like, is because my like attention span can hold on to like a maximum 40-minute episode. Then I got to do something and then come back to it. Whereas like a movie, I can't sit there the whole time. So have you seen Normal People? That's on Hulu.
No, I have not.
It's very, very hot. It's just like about a couple that's like supposed to be together, but not really. And it's set in Ireland, I think. It's very good. Very like intimate portrait of like young love. Next one is BoJack Horseman. It was the last season.
Wait. Hold on. Before you get into that, explain this more. So it's like a couple. So what's going on with them?
I mean, I don't want to give it away.
No, like give a little snippet.
A lot of the trials and tribulations of a relationship, but not a relationship. So it's okay. They meet at school. You know what I mean? Like you just got to dive right into it. I'm giving short synopses. Synopses?
Yeah.
Fungi.
So this is in Ireland, or
yeah, it's set in Ireland, I believe.
I love the Irish. I do. Yeah, I really do.
So the next one that I had was BoJack Horseman, which was probably one of like the most, I would say, like, I don't know, dark, like comedy, like most, I don't know, like it really touched my soul for some reason. Like we're twin flames.
So this is
in the show.
Sorry to interrupt you. This is the last season of that, right? I haven't seen the show at all, but I did know that this was the last season. Okay. And you liked it.
Yeah. And it tied up a lot of loose ends. So if you've never seen it, it's basically an animated show about real life craziness about some like guy who was an actor who was famous back in Hollywood, and then he like in the 80s, and then he did a lot of drugs and he fucked up his life, and then he was like trying to reemerge into the spotlight of Hollywood, and like it, you know, shows all of his things that he copes with, such as depression, family problems, like all this stuff, and it's all basically kind of like sugar coated a little bit with comedy in the caricature of these cartoons as well. So it's good. It's like a really nice balance, and I really liked it. And then easy watch, the Great British Bake Off. I could just like watch that, listen to it in the background.
So this is my problem with British Bake Off, which is not a problem. Like I love the show. It is great. But what you just said, like I can't watch a show like, let me put it this way. I can't watch that show and just be watching that show. I have to be doing something else in the like that is a show that has to be played in the background.
Right,
like,
for sure. I definitely think it stands out that way.
You can't watch it just like doing nothing. Like,
I've also fallen asleep to it several times. It's just something about, I think, the British commentary plus like the calming music.
Oh, it's so relaxing.
It's a very relaxing show, and I fucks with it.
It's the perfect show to be doing like something else, which is problem. Exactly. But yeah.
I would be remiss to say, and I would count this as a show because it was like a multitude of episodes, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention Tiger King, because I was fully
That was not 2020, was it? Was it?
Came out during quarantine.
Jesus.
Yeah, remember the first part of quarantine when we were all on lockdown and just at our homes?
I only watched like 2 episodes of that and then I had to stop because it was just a fucking disaster and I
love a dumpster fire. I will watch that shit burn. No. And boy did this burn. And it had so many layers, like an onion. I loved it.
My life is a dumpster fire, so
I guarantee you could put the worst of your worst up against these people and still
definitely. I mean,
it was messy.
When you have straight guys that are having sex with a gay man for meth, like they already beat they already beat me. Yeah, I mean, don't do meth.
Yeah, don't do meth. Okay, I got to say The Mandalorian, obviously.
Okay, so I was going to say The Mandalorian, like Tim had mentioned that, but I was like, it's not finished yet. So I don't know how it's going to end. But I mean, everything so far has been on point.
It's been so good. And, you know, BB Yoda. Love him. Love everything he does.
You're all caught up, right?
No, not all the way.
Oh, well, then I can't.
No, and we were not going to talk about it. We're just going to do little snippets.
You can't say you recommend a fucking show and then you're not caught up with it.
Why?
Because what if the rest of the episodes were trash?
Okay, then. But I like it so far. I didn't know there were rules to it.
Yes. How far are you?
I would say I just started the newer season.
Girl. Oh,
yes.
Come on.
Can I help you?
Like, okay, so like I can't even I'm not even gonna. I mean, now we know his name, so like there's that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So like, yeah, I mean, you can't be recommending stuff if you don't if you have to be at the most current shit. But I
respectfully disagree with you, Robert.
I will say no, we will not leave it at that. Mm-hmm. I will say that everything has been amazing, like so far, and I'm sure that they're not gonna. They've only got 2 more episodes left, so I doubt.
You know what? I dare them to fuck it up, like those 2 guys.
I dare you.
Those 2 guys who did Game of Thrones. I dare them.
No, it's not. Oh, I thought you were saying that they did it. I was like, no, they're not.
I said I dare them to fuck it up like they did to Game of Thrones.
God,
I wish they would.
R.I.P.
So they could be the next laughing stock of Hollywood.
They would never.
I heard a rumor, or I think I read it online, that those guys, I forget their names, but they're brothers, I think.
Yeah.
They were set to do one of the Star Wars movies or shows or something. And that's the reason why they were one of the reasons why they were trying to fly through the last Game of Thrones is so they could start on their next project. And it was such a bomb that I think that they were dropped from the Star Wars movie.
I don't know if they were dropped, but I did hear that they were given the green light to do a movie in a new Star Wars series. So
but why fucking kill one project, one baby? I don't know. I personally couldn't do that if I had, put so much love into something.
I mean, here's the deal. We're going to verge off topic for a second and talk about Game of Thrones because it is very near and dear.
A whole separate episode, honestly, but
it is near and dear to my heart. As garbage as the last couple of seasons were, we do have to realize that show relied on books. They had source material for the first, how many seasons were there? 8, the first 5 or 6, I forget how many exactly, before they ran out of source material because George R. Martin hasn't fucking finished the series. So, yes, the last season was horrible, but give them a fucking break. They didn't have anything to go by. They had loose information from the author about how the series was going to end, but he hasn't finished the last 2 fucking books. So I think we need to give them a fucking break. I know that's a hot take.
Yep, that's a hot take right there, and I'm gonna just say no. But I respect your opinion,
because as somebody who has read all the books, I will say that they are masterpieces, and they needed source material, and they shouldn't have done the last season without him finishing these books. So I blame George R. R. Martin. To be honest, he's probably going to die before those books come out. So
I think they're doing a prequel now, right? Like not the same.
No, HBO is doing, yes, but
which I'm excited for. I'm hoping that'll have like a new team behind it.
It'll be great. And guess what?
The lore of all of it is still interesting at the end of the day.
And guess what? They have source material for that because he wrote a book for that. So yes, it's going to be amazing because they have the material for that. So, yeah, fuck you, George R. R. Martin. I'm pissed off.
You're like, I'm still not over it. But yeah, those are my shows. That's kind of what I was into.
Okay, you give us your hot takes for the best music of 2020 first.
Easy. So after my Spotify did the yearly Wrapped, it was very apparent that I listened to only Tame Impala's new album and Chromatica. So those are my two, and I stand by them. Two very different vibes, but a vibe nonetheless. I know Chromatica's on your list.
I mean, no, it's not that good of an album. It's just kidding.
You've only mentioned it 5 times.
Just fucking kidding. So I'm going to stand on my fucking soapbox right now, and say that Chromatica was the album of the year for me. And I just want to say, look, before any of you cocksuckers want to get on my ass about liking mainstream pop, I just need to say that if COVID was not a thing this year, this album would have been a titan. It would have been played in every single fucking bar. Yeah, we would have lost our shit. So,
I mean, you know what else I would have loved to see, like in a club playing, is WAP. Like,
oh yeah,
people getting down to WAP would have been such a hit.
Yes, but I think this album was created prior to COVID, obviously. And she had no idea that this was going to happen. But this album was crafted to be played in the club. Like, it is dance music. And it depresses me that this album, we will listen to it in the clubs when things go back to normal. Don't get me wrong. But had COVID not had happened, this album would have been even bigger than it was. And I don't know, just like, it makes me kind of sad for her. I'm just like, you put your heart and soul into this album and it is a masterpiece, and you had to take your plans and kind of just scrape them and redo your whole thing. And it was still a hit. Like, don't get me wrong, like, props to fucking Lady Gaga and her team. Like, they did the damn thing. I think that this album is still like the album of the year for me. And I will say that had it not been there, I don't know like how I would have been during, like, I listened to 74 hours of Lady Gaga this year.
What did it say that you were in the percentage of her listeners? Did it tell you that?
No, I did like this Apple thing because I don't fucking have Spotify. Oh, you're one of those.
Got it. Yeah. That's cute.
Yeah. Fuck you.
You know what? We have a diverse audience. That's fine. That's fine.
I feel like I'm the only one that doesn't have a fucking Spotify. and it feels lonely, but I like
go against the grain, Robert.
I'm going against it. Fuck Spotify. Although don't.
He said what he said. He said what he said. But also don't because you can now listen to TipTea podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So thank you to both of those.
We love you, Spotify. We love you. Thank you. But yeah, no, I'm not a Spotify bitch. So honorable mentions for me. I have a couple were Women in Music Part 3 by Chaim and Yeji's What We Drew and Flo Milli Ho Why Is You Here? So those are my picks.
All things I haven't listened to but would consider because I think you have good taste.
I mean, I have decent taste. Yes,
we both like Sade. That's all that matters to me. We'll just work from there.
Which also she was on my list too for most listened to in 2020, and I know
I saw that, and I was like, true.
And I would put her in the. I mean, fuck it. I'm gonna put Sade. You deserve to be on this list for 2022.
Can I tell you the first time I read her name? Was like out loud to somebody, and I was like, yeah, that artist Shade. And I was like, wow. It's like, wow, I'm so white. It hurts sometimes.
Okay, so I don't know if I put this on your list or not, and I apologize, but on my list I forgot to put best books, and so I put best books.
I don't read.
Okay.
I don't know how to read.
I guess I just knew like psychically that you don't read. So
yeah, I would still be saying like Harry Potter over and over again just because I just continue to read that stuff that's in my comfort zone. Actually, you know what I'm revisiting right now, which is so random? I was thinking of, I'm sorry I cut you off, but have you ever read And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie?
Yes, we had to read that in school.
Yeah. And like, I'm just starting it over again because the other day I was hit with like the most random nostalgia about how I was like fascinated by that book because I always thought it was so fucking weird when we had to read it. And so now I'm like on Audible and I listen to it every night and it kind of creeps me out, but really worth it.
I mean, I remember reading that book in school and I did love it. I love Agatha Christie. So yes, it's a bop.
What was your bop?
My bop for this year is Cast by Isabel Wilkerson. And yeah, it is a phenomenal fucking book. I'm still reading it, to be honest. I haven't finished it. But this book is so fucking good. So fucking good. So the book kind of examines, it takes a deep look at our caste system that we have in America. And it really like examines like the bones of our country. And like, I think it is so important for every single person to read this book, whether you're white, whether you're black, especially if you're white. You need to be reading this book, especially if you're black, and especially if you think that we do not live in a system that is still hindering black people in 2020. You definitely need to read this book. Mm-hmm. Because it is definite. It is.
We should share that as a resource on our website.
Yes.
Because I think that's a great idea.
I mean, I think this book is for anybody that has any doubt or question as to why like black people feel the way that they feel today, like read this book. Mm-hmm. It is so good. I've been posting little snippets on my social media about like little facts when I'm reading this book, and it's just so fucking mind blowing. I mean, have you seen any of the stuff that I posted?
Yes, I've seen the dates and the future dates that you talked about, like what would equal like how many years what year it would be to equal the amount of years post-slavery that
yes, 2022,
which is wild.
And 2111 would be the year that, how did I say it? That African American, hold on, I'm gonna fucking look this shit up. It's just mind blowing. And like, if you give me a fucking second, I will fucking get that book. And I was reading this shit. Okay. So 2111 will be the year in which African Americans as a group will have been free for as long as they have been enslaved. And none of us will be alive for that.
Wow.
But
that shit's heavy, but you need to consider it. And I think that book really brings out some good points.
Let me I'm going to just run real quick and grab this fucking book. Hold on a second. Okay. So I was reading about interracial marriage and just how one of the pillars of the caste system is prohibiting different people from different castes to get married. So the Supreme Court did not overturn. Okay, so here, let me back up. While there was never a single nationwide ban on intermarriage, despite several attempts to enact one, 41 of the 50 states passed laws making intermarriage a crime punishable by fines up to $5,000 and up to 10 years in prison. The Supreme Court did not overturn these prohibitions until 1967. Still, some states were slow to officially repeal their laws. Alabama, the last state to do so, did not throw out its law against intermarriage until the year, just guess this.
I have no idea. I don't even know what to
2000.
Guess. Oh, wow.
The year 2000. Isn't that just fucking crazy?
It is.
And
it's also fucking real.
Even then, 40% of the electorate in that referendum voted in favor of keeping the marriage ban in the books. 40% in 2000.
If there's one thing we've learned from the past election, is that there's a lot of white racist people out there.
Yeah.
Also, well, I shouldn't just say white racist. There's a lot of fucking racist people out there, period. And it's never become more apparent than for me this past year.
Well,
we can go into that another time.
We can I would love to do that. All right. I actually think it is time to do our interview with Raquel. So
the lovely Raquel. We're waiting for her. We're so excited.
We still need to finish this, but we can finish this.
Jump right back as soon as it's done. Yep.
We could jump right back after this is done. So grab another cocktail, refreshen that, and fix your wig. And when we come back, we will talk with Raquel about mental health and how to deal with COVID stressors. TipTea is presented by...
Wait, Robert, we don't have any sponsors.
Shit. Well, let's go to plan B. Are you a local business or restaurant located in St. Louis or Chicago that is looking for some promotion?
Does the sound of our voices sound like cash flowing into your bank account?
If you said yes to any of these, then please email us at tipteapod.robert@gmail.com for further info.
Please sponsor us so we don't have to sell our souls to Jenny Craig.
Welcome back to TipTea Podcast. And here with Layla and I today is Raquel Rocha. How are we doing today?
I'm super excited to be here. Just excited to talk about cognitive behavioral therapy and being a therapist and COVID and all this hot mess that we're dealing with right now.
Oh, it's a hot mess. So why don't you tell us, before we dive deep into that, just a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah. So I am a licensed clinical social worker, which means that I've spent enough time in the field of social work to be able to provide psychotherapy for people. I started my social work journey back in 2013. It's been a long, crazy ride. I took a little break and went back to hospitality for a while. So I definitely have a love for that there. And right now I do private therapy, and I also do therapy with seniors in a long-term care facility. I've worked with kids for a while, doing stuff with depression, anxiety, ADHD, families as well. So kind of just have explored a lot of different areas, but my heart is in mental health. I worked at a psychiatric rehab facility, which just means that we provide services for folks who have some more serious concerns, major depressive disorder, bipolar, schizophrenia, stuff like that. So now I'm just kind of doing the private practice thing starting January 2021. So I'm really excited to be focusing on that and just kind of like exploring that realm, providing services for other people, and just really kind of diving deep into that.
So kind of describe this approach that you use for your therapy. I know you said that you do cognitive behavior therapy.
So CBT is wonderful. That's kind of the short name for it. So pretty much cognitive behavioral therapy, it pretty much just kind of helps us to recognize what our personal values are, right? Mm-hmm. It kind of helps to improve our perception of like how we see ourselves in a given situation. So really what it is there's a behavior that's happening, and then we have a whole bunch of thoughts that kind of like surround this behavior. So for example, I'm really stressed out. I need to smoke, right? I need to go smoke a cigarette. And so there's other kinds of feelings that are there, but we might not acknowledge it. We might just kind of like utilize a behavior to kind of deal with what's happening. And so what's happening there is that we're avoiding some of these feelings that we could be talking about. So cognitive behavioral therapy really is kind of about checking some of those behaviors before they kind of spiral off into unhealthy behaviors or into some of these maladaptive thought processes. So that's kind of CBT in a nutshell.
So I have go ahead, Layla.
I was just going to say, I definitely have a few of those that I would love to talk to you about sometime. Not to make a joke out of it at all, but I was like, oh, really? Like, as you're talking, I'm like, that's interesting. Taking notes.
Yeah, no, I love that.
So I have a question, and it's, what is like the difference between that and so my counselor, like that I go and talk to, she is really into emotional focus therapy. So like, what's the difference between that and cognitive?
So emotional focus therapy is kind of this almost the same in the fact that we're looking at emotions, right? Mm-hmm. And so sometimes this is, I believe it can also be called rational emotive therapy. And so kind of the idea is checking, okay, is this a rational thought, right? If I am emotional, right? Sometimes we get pulled into emotional situations and immediately we might become very angry or very defensive, or we might start crying, right? That might be like our first line of defense, or, we might kind of just be very avoidant in certain situations. We have to explore what it is that we're feeling. And so that's kind of the first initial line that we take when we're talking about that type of therapy. Okay. So essentially they can be used in conjunction, like together. So that's kind of the difference. So more so cognitive behavioral therapy is more so like recognizing these cognitive distortions that exist, kind of feeling a little bit like, all right, these are behaviors that I'm not a huge fan of, and I need to make some changes here. Mm-hmm. So we do have that emotional element, but for me as a cognitive behavioral focus, I kind of focus solely on that behavior and the feelings surrounding that behavior.
Okay, I see. So with COVID being as big as it is, and like having such a impact on our physical bodies, mentally, can you kind of explain to us like what that pandemic is causing on like everybody mentally?
So I just want to clarify. So you're asking kind of about the
mental tolls of COVID, not like the physical. Obviously, people are getting sick, and but the people that aren't getting sick are still being affected by COVID mentally.
Yeah. So, a lot of kind of what I'm hearing is there's, I'm feeling a little lost. I'm stuck in my house. Like I'm not able to hang out with friends like I used to be able to. And so that experience can be very overwhelming for people, especially if they're, very extroverted or they're very much grounded in some of these like group types of activities, right?
Yeah.
So this could be like, I play basketball every Friday with some friends, or, I, go watch a sport at my local bar or something like that. Right. So there's a sense of loss of identity is a lot of what I'm seeing on my end. And kind of just like, now, what does this mean? I'm feeling depressed because I can't do some of the things that I used to enjoy. Right. And so that can be very debilitating for folks because, again, that loss of sense of self can be so confusing and kind of, you might be triggered in different ways. You might recognize that there's some aspects of yourself that maybe, are a little bit heightened in situations like with COVID, where you can only be at home or, you're having less time with friends. So naturally, I think what's happening is people are becoming a little bit more introspective. And sometimes that could be really overwhelming. So that's when it's really important to kind of seek help from a therapist, because when we're becoming a little bit introspective, that's when sometimes some of these thoughts can pop up where maybe they're very ruminative in nature, which just means repetitive, right? And we might kind of be a little bit confused about some of these thoughts, and a therapist can really help you to kind of sort that out. Another thing that I'm seeing is just a lot of anxiety, right? A lot of anxiety, like surrounding COVID itself. Like, oh my God, if I leave my house, then I'm going to get COVID. Or, oh my gosh, like my friend's roommate, came into contact with me for 5 seconds and I think I have it now. Right. So some of this extreme anxiety that's occurring, which again is understandable, but really what I try to focus on for folks who are having some of this extreme anxiety is recognizing what we can control, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy, we always want to recognize what is it that we can control? What are the controllables here? What are the things in our power? How can we, be prepared for interacting with the world around us? The one thing that we can control is ourselves, right? So that means that if I need to wear 2 masks, then I wear 2 masks. If I need to stay 6 feet apart from somebody, then that's what I do. Or, if I decide that, I have a small bubble instead of maybe a larger extended bubble, these are some ways that we can find control and kind of check ourselves when we're starting to feel a little bit anxious, right? Because we can only control ourselves. We can't control what other people are doing outside of ourselves, right? But we can certainly protect ourselves. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, it does. I mean, for me personally, I think that I've always had anxiety, right, through like my childhood and now. And I feel like anxiety is something that for the most part, most people can cope with and deal with. But just with the pandemic, at least for me, it just kind of, like you said, I became more introspective and just like in my head more so than I have ever been in my life. And I've been like, oh my God, like, I don't like this. I don't like this feeling. I'm noticing all this stuff. So that's when I decided to seek counseling, and it's been great so far.
Yay.
Yeah, I love it. I am a huge proponent of like telling everybody that they need to get counseling.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But like, I just feel, and maybe recently it started to get better, but like there's such a stigma with like mental health and like seeking out help. And like, do you think that it's getting better? Do you think it's getting worse?
So this is like one of the topics that's near and dear to my heart, because part of the reason why I decided to even study like psychology and go into social work was for that very reason, right? Like, so I'm Mexican American. My dad came to this country when he was 14. And so his ideas about feelings and stuff like that growing up was like very confusing, like doing your own like therapeutic work. You have to write about some of your experiences, right? And so feelings in our household were like, it was either hot or very cold, right? And so one thing that was really important to me in my journey, and as I was like going into social work, was I recognized that this was something that was really, really common for a lot of people, was that feelings were something that were not necessarily discussed, right? It was either people had very hot or cold parents, right? And some of that stuff. So it was really, really important to me to make sure that that stigma of seeking help, of mental health in general, was like normalized. So that's super important and near and dear to me, because I think that had we have some of this movement even 15, 20 years ago, I think that a lot of us kind of with COVID or some of these extra stresses kind of dealing with the external world as being very chaotic, I think we might have been more prepared, more grounded for this. Right. But that's okay. Like we're at where we're at, and people are recognizing the importance of mental health. Right. And so what I'm loving that I'm seeing is that like there's a lot of like millennials and Gen Z who are like, I need a therapist. Like, I need to talk to somebody. Like they're like really all about it, which is awesome, because we have to recognize that feelings are important to feel, and that our experience is a shared experience, right? If, I come home and I have a bad day at work and I'm grumpy towards my partner, well then, that can be a challenge, right? And we don't want to put that on other people. We want to be able to manage and explore and express our emotions and our feelings in an appropriate way, and not have some of this hot and cold reactive behavior, right? Whether that's being upset or being very cold or, any number of things. We have to understand, why is it that we're feeling this? So when it comes to that stigma, I find that more people are open to it. I love that there are companies out there that are allowing their employees to have telehealth included kind of in all of 2020, as people are kind of stuck in their homes doing work from home. And when it comes to kind of like the field of hospitality, I love that I'm seeing more people taking their mental health very seriously. I know when I worked in hospitality, mental health was not really a thing, and people would just kind of like ignore it. And like you go out and you party, and it's like you start over the next day. Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes that toxicity can be really, really detrimental, because we're not addressing some of the things that have happened. Right. I love that I'm seeing this. I see, and I'm super addicted to TikTok right now. I don't know if anybody else is.
Me too. Oh.
Okay, so we'll be adding each other and then sending each other things until the rest of the time. Got it.
Obsessed with TikTok right now. So like, I love that there are therapists on TikTok providing.
I love it. I love it.
And like on Instagram, like I love seeing that, because even if we can share like a small amount or a small bit of like, oh, okay, like what are appropriate boundaries, or like what are signs of like stonewalling, right? Or like any number of things, or like even just kind of like when I was discussing like what cognitive behavioral therapy is, and Layla was like, oh yeah, okay, taking notes, right? Like that's what we want for people.
Yes.
Like I know for me, like this is what I want for people. I want everyone to find what works for them. What, like, I want them to be their best self in their journey of life. Right. I know that sounds like super lame and cliche, but
it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
So for me, when you were talking, I was just kind of thinking like, why is it, I feel like, and maybe it's because of not enough access to it, but like when we talk about like the stigma around mental health, I think that like the biggest stigma around it comes from minorities. Like, you know, from my perspective, African-American people don't really talk about like mental health. Like, you know, that's very private. You don't really like discuss that. If you need that, like you kind of seek it out on your own. Like, but that's not like a really talked about thing. And I wonder if that's like because of like access or what, but I feel like the biggest stigma we get is from like minority groups who, you know, in fact, probably need this the most.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you're 100% right when you say that, because, you know, like one thing that I think is really important for me being Mexican American and like having, right, like that experience of, you know, being like alienated, growing up in a place that there weren't many people that looked like me. And not only that, but this experience of like, oh, well, you don't talk about your feelings to other people. And like, you don't tell like growing up, you don't tell your teacher that like, this is how, like you're sad or like any of these number of things. And I think where that comes from is kind of this like generalized idea that these things stay in the family, right? And they stay in the family unit. And that's like, that can be very dangerous and toxic for folks, right? And, you know, like for African Americans, for Black folks, like, just, okay, like oppression, right? Oppression, like the start general oppression, right? Big O oppression. Yeah, we need to talk about that, because having that feeling every day of feeling oppressed in a number of different ways in the workplace or in your neighborhood, or, you know, everything that's happened over the summer, like that is trauma that needs to be talked about, right? Like microaggressions, these are things that need to be talked about. You know, folks who have come to this country at a young age, who've experienced, you know, separation from their families, or, you know, have had intergenerational trauma, you know, experiences of war in different countries, or, you know, what have you, that those things, those experiences carry on into different generations. And so that's kind of where, you know, some aspects of talking about family can come up in therapy sessions. And it's absolutely 100% on the table, I believe, to discuss these things, right? Because these can become protective in nature, right? When we're talking about, okay, well, we don't talk about our feelings to other people. Well, because that could be detrimental to the family system, right? Yeah. So like if we're talking historically, right, we don't have to look very far. I mean, it happens. And it's not, I'm not throwing shade at certain agencies, right? But if a child says something that might sound unusual to somebody else, then that could put the child in jeopardy of being taken away from that family unit, right? Yeah. And obviously there are cases where this should happen, but then there are other cases where maybe like, okay, well, there's a lot of people living at home. Well, okay, I mean, in some family cultures, a lot of, it's intergenerational. There are a lot of people at home. That doesn't necessarily necessitate the need for somebody to step in. So yeah, I kind of went on a tangent there, but
no, I think that makes complete sense. So I'm curious, Layla, like in like Bosnian culture, how's mental health like around that?
I think Raquel and I, it's funny because, it sounds like our backgrounds are pretty similar in terms of like, coming into a completely new culture, and then kind of like not addressing mental health or not addressing, questionable traumas or things within families or, outside stressors, anything like that. I would definitely say like growing up and, I don't think my parents and I ever really connected on that level. And yeah, I know my mom's listening to this probably at some point. And so like, no shade to her. It was just not something that was discussed. Feelings were not really discussed, but I was also kind of one of those like angsty emo kids too. So it was all about like my outlets were the music or my friends or, you know what I mean? So there were ways of self-care, I think. But definitely not discussed like within the family. I did seek eventually outside therapy. And, my mom actually came with me to quite a few sessions. So she has been there, but it's not, I don't know. It's almost like you really have to fight against, and maybe fight's not a good word, but go against the embedded grain of like what they were raised to believe, like they being my parents versus what I was kind of raised into. Like those are two completely different cultures. And so sometimes it's really hard to get even a conversation going about mental health because you have to almost kind of like swim against, swim upstream and trying to get others to understand your perspective and your viewpoint because things are so different. They're coming from two different worlds, right? So I think that's also something why I kind of didn't pursue it. Now I definitely put more of an emphasis on it. And I think it's because the comfortability about mental health and discussing things is way more prominent. And what's great too is you hear about it way more. I think growing up, I never really picked up on anything like that. It was kind of like always this underbelly joke, like, oh, this person needs help. It was always a punchline. It was this or that, but it wasn't kind of embraced as it is now. So I think that has helped a lot. And I hope it's getting more conversations happening in homes versus like when I was growing up, at least,
Yeah.
I was going to ask a question. Sorry, go ahead, Robert.
No. I was just going to say, I agree with you 100%. Like, I think, obviously we grew up together and that's the same with my family. Like, definitely there if we needed them, but like, they didn't have that in their lives. So like, how are they going to help us when they don't have those tools? Like they didn't have those tools. So how are they going to help us with that? So yeah.
And I find it interesting that at least in Bosnia, I kind of picked up even still, it at one point was a war-torn country. I mean, still being rebuilt more than 20 years after. But even now, like the only kind of therapy that they have, let's say post-trauma of like a war on, on their national soil happening, the only sort of counseling that I've seen like within my nearest, I would say, family or friends has been just communicating about the war. Like whenever, there's always a joke that whenever Bosnians get together, like older Bosnians who have lived through it, that's all they talk about. And they like will really get into it. And it's almost like this is the only, like they've been holding it in for so long. And this is the only moment of relief. It's really, it's honestly, it's a total bummer if you're just like at somebody's house and you're like, okay, like me and my brother, like, yeah, we empathize, but at the same time, we're like, okay, this is supposed to be a dinner party.
So that's like the PTSD response, right? That's like trauma bonding. So
to this day, I'm like, would love to have my parents, like, if they, of course, wanted to, have them speak to somebody about it, because I can't imagine A, what they went through, or B, like what they could truly have to unload. Because I know both of them have seen some shit.
Yeah, I've actually had a couple of clients one client, she was a child of a father who was in the Bosnian War. And then I had another adult client who was also, she emigrated to this country, asylum wise because of the war. And so I think you're absolutely right in saying, like, I would like them to talk to somebody about it. And it's something that is a very unique experience, right? And so that experience, I'm sure once they can all be together in a space and talk about it, it's probably a very big relief for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I would imagine that because it's such a specific event for them to discuss with somebody else, it might feel a little weird. But I think absolutely encourage them maybe, right, to like record their story. I think that in itself could be a form of therapy, right? That could be very therapeutic for them to kind of express what that was like, and for you to even understand what that experience was like and how maybe it's impacted the way that they have shared their feelings with you, and kind of how that's impacted you as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really good point that you bring up. Like, if you aren't the type of person that can or feel comfortable exposing themselves to therapy right off the bat, writing things down is a great method, obviously, of self-care. But do you have any other suggestions outside of that? Like, are you a big proponent on, meditation or any other styles of self-care that, maybe for somebody who isn't just quite ready for one-on-one therapy?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I think can be really important for somebody is just recognizing, like, how do you feel like you need to heal yourself, right? Like, when we think of self-care, sometimes we have this idea that it's like, face masks and bubble baths and like bottles of champagne. And that's cool if that's your thing within reason. But I think it could be kind of like you mentioned, journaling, right? Noticing, like, when do you have the power to make a choice, right? And kind of just being really thoughtful about some of the questions that you're asking yourself, right? I love deep breathing, guided meditations. Those are my two favorites. Deep breathing is something that I try to incorporate in almost every single one of my anxiety sessions, because we want to learn and understand our anxious response, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're experiencing anxiety, it could be we're experiencing it in a number of different ways, right? And this is like the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn type of response. So the deep breathing is going to help to kind of reset us and start to allow ourselves to come down from that very anxious or anxiety provoking kind of situation. And then, then we can kind of move in different directions when it comes to that. But if you're doing this on your own and you're kind of trying to figure out where you need to start, definitely start with deep breathing, journaling. That's where I would start. Once we're talking about guided meditations and stuff like that, you have to be really comfortable in a place where you can kind of like sit and meditate, right? You're listening to somebody kind of guide you through this meditation. But for some folks, it can be challenging, right? Because our mind can kind of chatter, and we really want to try to kind of decrease that. But if your mind is very chattery, definitely write down what it is that keeps popping up. And I'm willing to bet that could be a topic that when you are ready to seek therapy, that's what you can bring to the table.
Absolutely. And then kind of on the flip side, so let's say someone is ready to seek therapy. And, I want to say for me personally, this is just my experience, but I've had great therapists and I've had really shitty ones. And by shitty, I just mean like, I just don't think that their methods or maybe their approach was aligned with mine. I think that we butted heads a lot. But like in terms of what someone should look for in a therapist, like obviously there's no right or wrong answer, but is there just like a generic way that you could say like, these are the things you got to look for to make yourself feel that, maybe you are in the best space for yourself, or maybe you should, consider seeing somebody different. Because I personally had gotten stuck, once before with somebody who I felt was taking me down a path that I, wasn't quite, vibing with, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, just kind of, you can elaborate on that. I know it's kind of not a very clear, concise answer, but.
Oh, no, I hear what you're saying. So I think vibe is super important, right? Like for me, like I think that representation matters, right? Like one thing that I have come across is like clients that have been like, I see that you have like you have curly hair, right? You look like me. Like, I think representation is important. And so another thing that is really important, and I kind of want to speak to that experience that you've had of having great therapists and having not so great therapists, right? You kind of mentioned like, okay, different styles, right? Each therapist has a different style. We all kind of learn from different life experiences that we've had. And certainly if a therapist is leading you down a path that you're not feeling, you can certainly set a boundary and say like, I'm not comfortable with that. If you are not feeling the therapist, definitely do some research, check out Psychology Today, check out goodtherapy.com. You can set parameters or filters for looking for the appropriate therapist for you. And also when it comes down to kind of what your concern is, right? I think that when we're talking about, oh, I have anxiety or, I'm feeling down and depressed, I think it can be very therapist specific. Some people are really comfortable with an older therapist, or some people are really comfortable with a therapist that's around their age. So I think it kind of depends what you're looking for, what you're looking to address, right? If you are looking to address behaviors that you're seeing in yourself that you're not a super huge fan of, I definitely would recommend CBT. If we're talking about kind of like grief or loss, or kind of maybe having a hard time accepting certain aspects of our lives, dialectical behavioral therapy can be really wonderful. Rational emotive therapy is really great. That can also be in conjunction for something like anxiety or depression. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Robert, can I just impose a little bit on a question? Did you feel like when you found your therapist, did you have to go through a few, or did you feel comfortable right away?
So I found, luckily I have, so prior to this, I was talking to one of my friends who talks to a therapist, and I was like, I want to seek therapy. I want to find like a counselor or a therapist to talk to. I just like, how was that experience? Like, tell me all about it. And it didn't make sense when she said it, but it totally makes sense. Like going through it. I mean, it's like dating. Like, I think that like finding your therapist is like, it's dating and finding like,
should I make my Bumble profile looking for my next therapist?
Yes. But like, for real, like when she said that, I was like, that sounds kind of weird, but like, it's true. So when I was lucky enough that I have a good friend who is a counselor, and I said to him, because I wasn't going to have him counsel me, obviously, because he's my friend, I said, can you recommend somebody for me that is, for me, it was important that they're LGBT friendly, right? Because I didn't want somebody who themselves isn't really comfortable with, LGBT issues or whatnot. So I asked him to recommend somebody that was LGBT friendly, and he recommended this woman, and she is amazing. So Tim and I are going to couples counseling in conjunction with me going to counseling for myself. And we went to this couples counselor, and our first one was like horrible. And not horrible, but like we would end the session and like Tim and I would just look at each other and be like, I feel worse than like we started. Like he didn't do anything for us. Like I just felt like it was going nowhere. Like we were just hashing out things that honestly we could just be hashing out like ourselves versus, going to somebody and paying them to.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So like, was the therapist specialized for couples therapy?
Yeah, so he was, but it just like I said, he just was not, I don't know, like it just felt like it was not going anywhere. It was just like we were just like a venting session. And then like he would go, okay, that sounds great. Well, the time's up. see you
like,
next
great,
week.
now I got to get in the car and get this fight going.
So the reason why I ask is because like I have heard this from multiple folks about stuff like this, where they enter couples therapy and they feel like nothing is resolved, right? And I just wanted to shout out like a specific style called Gottman. I think Gottman is wonderful. Gottman therapy. It's specifically for couples. And so if anyone's listening to this and they're looking for a couples therapist, look specifically for Gottman, because the technique is kind of surrounded around like styles of fighting and then what to do in those styles of fighting, right? And sometimes what happens is like in the initial couple of sessions is that it does feel that way. It feels like, okay, we're unresolved. But then it's an awkward thing because like Layla said, like now you're in the car and you're like, okay, well, it doesn't feel good. Like we're still angry. We're still in the space that we're in. So how did you guys are now seeing a different therapist or?
Yeah. So we, so my counselor that I'm talking to, one-on-one, I had mentioned, this was not going great. And she goes, oh, well, I have somebody that I would recommend. She does emotion focus therapy and she does couples and she's very LGBT friendly. So she recommended us to her and she's a night and day, like amazing. But like I said, like we don't end the session feeling shitty. So
that's good.
Yeah. Step one.
No, but I mean, it just felt like horrible.
Terrible.
And then like, I just felt like he wasn't giving us anything to like work on for the next session either. It's just like, okay, well, the time's up. Like that was great. And then we're just looking at each other like that was horrible. So yeah, we really
sorry.
Yeah. I mean, but like I said, like it's dating and finding who works best for you. And I mean, he was good, but just not like what we were looking for.
Not
and
for you too.
Yeah. So we are very happy with who we have right now. She's great. But yeah, I mean, the pandemic has just highlighted everything. Like, I just feel like it's, for me, like my anxiety, I've always had it. It's just been made more present and like heightened. And with like, we were talking about what I would normally do when I'm anxious. And like, I would say, like, I go out, I, hang out with friends, I immerse myself in people. I'm pretty extroverted, but like to quiet my mind, I would do like yoga and stuff. Like I would go and work out and do that. And because of the pandemic, like I haven't been doing yoga. I haven't been doing it at home because like I just can't really quiet my mind when I'm in my own surroundings and like meditate like that. So yeah, I mean, my normal mechanisms for dealing with anxiety are being hindered by the pandemic. So it only makes sense that like I'm feeling more anxious than I normally would be. Because, yeah.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and it that is the piece that's really hard, right? Is like, okay, well, normally I would go and hang out with friends, or normally I would go do this, right? So I'm sure you and your therapist are like working on it, but I'm like jumping into therapist mode here. So what ways do you think that you could like challenge yourself to finding kind of like a social outlet without necessarily being like in proximity to folks? Like,
So for me, and this was recently, like within like the past week or two, I had started binge watching the show, and my friend hasn't seen it. And
Bitch, are you talking about me?
No.
Oh, I totally thought you were like my friend.
No. So we were watching The Crown and season 4, and we decided to watch it together. But like social distance, like he would watch it from his house. I would watch it from my house at the exact same time, and just like, text each other and chat about it. But like something so simple as that was just like, it's so fun. And I was like, we have to figure out another show that we're going to watch. But yeah, I mean, just little things like that have really helped. Playing board games. It's just, I think, and for the hardest thing is just like with Tim and I, my husband, it's just finding things to do around the house and like not be stepping on each other's toes. Like during the pandemic is like the hardest thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Being in a confined space with your partner and kind of like having those challenges, especially when you're already feeling anxious. I know that's when like little small fights kind of can start, or just like small irritation. Like,
yes,
right?
over the stupidest thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Something that you didn't even like think about a month ago. You're like, oh, why are the shoes out? Or like, you always drink from that glass. Like, what's the problem? Right.
That's
like,
me. I would be nitpicking so hard.
Yeah. So sometimes we have to check ourselves a little bit and be like, all right, is this really about the glass? Is this really about the shoes? Like, am I needing to, go for a walk or like chat with my friend, or maybe do like a Zoom yoga with my friend or something like that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Going on walks has been so helpful too, although it's kind of cold right now. So I haven't been doing that as much as I like.
So, like grounding can really be helpful. You also mentioned like mental chatter, kind of like grounding is just kind of like, what do we see? What do we hear? What do we smell? Like if we have a drink in hand, what do we taste? Right. Mm-hmm. And that can kind of help us when we're having a little bit of mental chatter, along with kind of that deep breathing, then we can kind of like reset ourselves. I just kind of want to help you out in that moment. Sorry.
No. I gladly take any and all tips. And I think, so I know we had talked about this before, but like, the word self-care is kind of like a hot topic right now. And like, does that word get misused a lot?
Again, I think sometimes people misconstrue the idea of self-care, right? So like self-care, I'm going to go on a shopping spree.
Right, like indulgence versus what is actually addressing
like healthy, right?
Yeah.
And so like we have to be careful to not fall into these tropes. I think sometimes too, like, okay, well, what does self-care mean? Right? Like sometimes the reason why we need self-care is because we're feeling burnt out, right? We might have very little motivation. We might feel like, oh, what does it matter? Like I'm stuck in this COVID house. Like I can't do anything, right? I'm so unmotivated. Or like, I can't sleep, my sleep schedule is off, right? Kind of feeling overwhelmed, just, all of these different things. And we really have to check in with those aspects and kind of try to figure out, when it comes to self-care, how can I alleviate the fact that I'm feeling unmotivated? Maybe it is buying yourself one new item, right? Because you never buy yourself something. Maybe it is going and getting a coffee down the street. Right. But we have to not fall into this idea that self-care is tied to overindulgence. Right. So sometimes I think that can be misconstrued. Right. Self-care isn't like I'm going to go overspend on my credit card and buy up everything on like, Black Friday or something like that. Right. So we have to kind of be careful when it comes to self-care. Again, if we're feeling unmotivated, maybe self-care is doing some type of movement, right? Maybe it is going for a walk. Maybe it is, deciding you're going to, get a little jog going or something like that. Or maybe it's deciding that you're going to start a new book. Maybe it's catching up on a new show and sharing that show with a friend, right?
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to self-care, we have to think about it in that way. And self-care too could be, again, like making healthy choices for yourself. Maybe you're feeling really upset at yourself for not having motivation. Maybe self-care is just like forgiving yourself. Or maybe it's just kind of thinking about, how can I empower myself, right? And that might be listening to a podcast about, I don't know, learning how to build something cool or something like that. So I hope that answers that question.
It does. It does. Is there anything else that you want to highlight or talk about? Any other tips or tricks for dealing with this pandemic?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the most important thing is just like putting everything into perspective. And again, asking, what am I in control of? And like kind of just saying, all right, well, the pandemic is happening, right? Even if there was not a pandemic, there's always some type of chaotic thing happening in our worlds, right? And so we just kind of have to put into perspective, like, what can I control? And kind of just, again, being patient with yourself, right? Just because maybe in this moment it feels super overwhelming, it doesn't mean that tomorrow it's going to be very overwhelming, right? And if it is overwhelming, why is it overwhelming? Like, write a list. Is it overwhelming because I can't do the things that I used to like to do? Okay, if that's the case, well then, like, let's pick up some new hobbies, right? This is an opportunity for change and growth. And so I think sometimes we have to remind ourselves that we're humans, right? We have feelings, and our feelings are valid, right? This is a shitty time, right? It is a shitty moment in time, but there's still a silver lining. And sometimes it can be hard when we are depressed or feeling anxious or feeling a number of things to find that silver lining. But, asking for help, there's tons of folks, tons of resources, right, out there. BetterHelp, Talkspace are really great platforms. If you're nervous about going or having a telehealth session, both of those allow you to just chat like via text message, right? Again, kind of utilizing Instagram. There's tons of great therapists on Instagram and TikTok that provide stuff. Little tips and tricks and stuff like that. And also, just wanted to kind of say too, like, as here in Chicago, it's starting to get dark very early. Make sure that you take your vitamins. Okay. Like, vitamin D is important.
Yes.
Vitamin D, yes. Like all of that. I am a super huge proponent of, the mind-body connection, making sure that you're taking something, right? So my favorite, and I am no way paid to say this, but like Super U daily stress management. And then at night I take like magnesium and L-theanine, and those help me to stay asleep all night, right? So making sure that you're taking care of your health first, and knowing that your mind is also just as important as your physical health.
I love that.
Oh, thanks.
Where were you months ago? I needed you.
We should have done this earlier.
It's okay. Yeah. Better late than never. And the pandemic's still going. So
that's true. I do have one thing that I want to add to the self-care methodology, which has helped me personally a lot. I get really bad FOMO, and just obviously during quarantine days, looking back on things such as travel and or concerts or the little things, like just being able to get together for a dinner party, like that kind of FOMO, I realized did not, like, to use the Marie Kondo quote, like spark joy. So I just kind of knew that it was a trigger for me, and I stopped looking back, and it's been super helpful. And then also just not following accounts like on social media that do trigger these negative emotions. Cause I feel like, since we're all glued to our phones anyway, we're always browsing, we're always looking, but sometimes we can either compare ourselves or our lives to other people's, and Instagram is just such a joke anyway. Like, that's not anyone's real life. It's their curated life. Right. So just kind of staying away from anything that does not spark joy, I think is helpful personally.
You're absolutely right, Layla. Like another top 3, I would say, is probably folks who are like dwelling on social media and kind of this FOMO, right? And so that experience can be really, really hard because you're kind of like looking back in time, or you might be late night kind of scrolling through your old photos and being like, oh, I went to that concert and like this year there are no concerts. And then kind of like falling into that spiraled thinking like, oh my God, right? And all of these things that are not happening. So I love that you brought that up. That's important to recognize that could be a trigger, right? And so when we're talking about behaviors, right? What behavior is happening there? You're feeling this FOMO. You're recognizing that Instagram and some of these other social media sites are kind of like driving that. So good call.
Thanks. I'm growing.
Hey, girl, we all got to grow. I mean,
yeah. One thing that I promised myself was during this quarantine, I needed to do something new. And like, I feel like I've done that tenfold, but internally, if I hadn't done anything, I think I would just be in a really bad place. So,
yeah, I think that's the hard part is that like, you know, we kind of doom scroll, like is what I call it when we're
I like
that term.
It's terrible. Yeah, where you just like
late at night.
Yeah, it's like the endless, right? It's like the endless, never ending. I don't even know why I'm looking at this, right? It's like 3 a.m, like I just need to get to bed. And really, like, it's just terrible, terrible behavior. And it kind of just sends us over the edge. And so, like, we have to find the silver lining. You know what? I don't need it. Do I need it? Do I need Instagram? Like, nothing's really going on. And people are just posting old stuff.
Right. Everyone's posting a throwback and no one's doing anything.
Right. And really, like, if they're at home and they're growing, like, that's way better than posting old shit.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I feel that. Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's kind of my piece, I guess. I don't know.
Is there anything that you want to highlight or plug for yourself? I know you're starting your own practice pretty soon.
Yes. So I am actually working with a partner with Allen Wellness Center out of Schaumburg at the moment, but definitely in the future, right? Looking to do bigger and better things. Mm-hmm. So right now I have my Instagram going. It's Raquel Rocha _LCSW. So I'm starting to post more content there. And then you can find me on goodtherapy.com. You just have to plug in my name and all of my stuff comes up. Kind of like my about me and like what I practice and all that good stuff. I take Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois insurance, PPO. And yeah, I'm also on BetterHelp. If anybody uses BetterHelp, I'm on there. So yeah, I'm really excited starting in January, just kind of more so focused on that aspect of growing that. I'm really excited. It's kind of my first venture alone. It's kind of, an opportunity to grow myself, right? I feel like if a therapist isn't growing, then, then they kind of stumble a little bit. So, one of my mantras is to grow every day. So, that's what I have to plug. I'll be on TikTok too. I'm working on it.
Yes, we love it. I love it.
Trying to figure out, do I need to do the dances? Like I don't know.
Yeah. And you feel like the whoa while you like throw over like, I don't know, self-care, like mantra right? Or something. You're just like dancing in the background while you're giving advice and like closed captions. That could be a vibe. I'm already seeing it for you. Let me know if you need a producer.
I totally do, because I'm telling you, like, I have no idea. I'm like, I'm so lost, like, with all of that. And two, I was thinking about like doing something about like representation. I know that they just dropped, like Netflix just dropped that Selena.
Oh, like, yeah, series. I need to watch that. Can't wait.
Yes. So I've been really thinking about that because like when I was little, like Selena, the movie came out and I watched that movie on repeat, like at the end every single time, like sobbing my eyes out.
Ugh.
And so like now seeing it, oh my God, I'm like getting teary eyed just thinking about it right now. Now seeing like, you know, more Mexican Americans and like how awesome it is for them to have such strong representation. For, like all of like TikTok right now, like a majority of what I see on TikTok is like young Mexican Americans like putting out content, which is like, it's hilarious. They're hilarious. They're so funny.
Have you seen the one? Have you seen the one where it is the single Mexican aunt, and she's like, oh my God, it's so funny. It's like, she's just a hot mess and like, you know, single and like flirting with everybody, flirting with her.
You gotta send it to me.
Yes. Flirting with her nieces, friends and like her teacher and stuff like that. Oh, it's just, it's so good. I'll send it to you.
You have to send it to me. Cause like, I think it's hilarious cause it's so true. Like these are things that like growing up, I knew it. I would see these like weird chismosa aunts, right? Like gossipy aunts. And I'd be like, oh my God, they're so embarrassing. Or like, they'd be out there like on the floor dancing all night. And I'd be like, oh my God, like, when are we going to go home? Like, it's like 4 a.m. Like, what the hell? And it'd be like my cousin's 3rd birthday. Like, so seeing now, like all of these kids, like putting out that content, I'm like, hell yeah.
They're just so clever. It's so good.
They are. Oh my God, I love it. So it's so cool to see that. And I'm hoping to emerge into that TikTok world. So again, trying to figure out what that looks like. So Layla, you need to help me with that content, girl.
Oh my God, I would love to. I would love to. That would be an honor, honestly.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us tonight.
Yes. Yeah. We'd love to have you back on.
Yes.
We can always dive deep all together and talk about the hot tea and shit that we all need to work on because no one's perfect.
I would love that, honestly.
Well, when we return, we will finish out the episode with our 2020 best of and what we are hopeful for in 2021. Thank you, Raquel.
Thank you, Raquel.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good one.
Me too.
Happy holidays from everyone at TipTea Podcast.
Wishing you and yours a very safe and happy new year.
Welcome back to TipTea Podcast.
Not ready for that. That was great. Keep going.
No, I can't do that. Your Majesty. Also, before we like dive back into what we were talking about, I just have to say those Voldemort
the best thing I've ever seen on TikTok. The best thing I've ever seen.
She's so good.
She's so good. So fucking good.
So to kind of explain to our listeners, there is this girl that does these Voldemort reenactments on TikTok, and she is genius.
She just throws a sheet over herself, puts on some sort of weird cap.
Bald cap.
Bald cap, and then grabs like what I'm assuming is like a fake wand and walks into like presumably somebody's random bedroom to do like an impression of Voldemort, and it's so on point, even from like the hand gestures.
The hand gestures are the best part. The movements. She does it perfectly.
And the voice kills. Well, you know what? I think I might have to just repost it on our story so people can see what we're talking about
when we release this episode.
Perfect.
So getting back to what we were talking about, I think we finished with the books, and then we were going to talk about winners of 2020. So do we want to, who are our winners?
Oh, I got some good ones. So
I got one, but you probably are going to say her, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. I might surprise you because I really sat there and thought about it. And I was like, actually, these are the winners. Because these are either people or things that kind of saved or reignited something in 2020 that it was missing, or just honorable mentions, really. So the first is obviously Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. very excited about that. But more importantly, excited for the first, second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, who is...
love that.
You know what I mean? He's a winner of 2020. He's got to pave the road for all the next second gentlemen that are going to come after him. But he is the first, second gentleman. So Doug, holler at the world and tell us how you're going to decorate Christmas and the White House. You know, when what's her face, Melania, was like, who gives a fuck about Christmas? That's like my favorite thing because it's so ridiculous.
He won't decorate because he's the second, right?
Well, oh yeah, wait.
He will. He's not. Right.
No, it'll be Dr. Jill.
Dr. Jill's going to make it look beautiful. Dr. Jill.
Why did I think that? What are his duties? Be a supportive husband, and we love that. Okay, supportive. Well, maybe he'll be able to like help.
Look,
Jill. I don't.
He is getting training for when he becomes first gentleman.
Yeah, the first gentleman. Okay, next one on my list, and this is a little bit of a throwback to early quarantine, but Animal Crossing, because I know
that was on my list of mentions too. But yes, I agree.
I mean, a lot of people through some, early days, and unlike TikTok was really taken over with it at the beginning, so I learned a lot about it. I didn't even need to buy the game. Another one that I'd say winners of 2020 are the protesters. Never have I seen this much power and people getting together and practicing their voices and practicing their rights and going out on the streets. And I think that seeing them, putting themselves on the front lines to actually a lot of abuse and general like violence and trauma is like unbelievable. And I think it kind of awoke the nation in a way that needed to be done. So shout out to them. And then my final shout out is to the two lucky guys who got to escape to space via the Tesla like rocket launch. Like while everyone was down here, literally like going through it, they were just like, you know what, we're out. And they got into a little spaceship, whatever you want to fucking call it. And they literally left the planet. They're like, you know what? Peace out. And they just zoomed off into the sky.
Are they back?
I believe they do. Like, I think they're back now, but they've since done like a second mission. Not those two gentlemen. They brought some other people on. So they do a rotation. I'm fascinated by it. But I also was like, oh, while the world down here is burning, y'all are just like, see ya. And I kind of respect that. Do what you got to do.
Would you go into space?
Bitch, I'm ready. Take me now. I'm so, what's the word I'm looking for? Enamored and like curious about, what's out there. I mean, how can you not be? I would volunteer as tribute.
I would go into space. It's kind of scary. I just don't want to be like Sandra Bullock, but
never seen it, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
As long as I'm not that bitch in that movie, we're good.
Right. Or George Clooney.
Or George in the same movie.
Or Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence in that other movie.
Yeah, fuck that. No. But yes, if an alien abducted me, I'd be all about it. So
good.
My winner for 2020 is Stacey Abrams.
Yes. Okay. I agree with you.
We love to see it. She did the damn thing. Her and her team registering all those people, all those Black voters to go out and vote. Like, yeah, she just showed how important it is to vote and and I've said this, but like how important Black women are in our society, and they really do save the day. And she's my winner.
I love that. Now, who are your losers, Robert?
Rudy Giuliani is my loser.
He's a big loser.
Because prior to him getting COVID, when the fucking Four Seasons lawnscaping.
Oh my God. Wow. That's also a winner of 2020 is Four Seasons Landscaping Company.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unbeknownst to them, put on to a giant platform.
I wish I was there.
What do you think the internal conversation was like? Like people are like, we're at the Four Seasons, you're not here. And they're like, oh, fuck. And then they like backtrack, like as an event planner type person. I'm like, how does that even... Oh. Well, I'm wearing my drink now.
Just so it said, do not edit this out. I need this in. Oh, Jesus.
As I was fucking saying before I was she wanted to be up here so bad.
Oh, shit.
That's a problem child that I nursed back to health. So.
Oh.
Anyways, but you know what I mean? Like, how the fuck do you fuck something like that up so badly? I can't tell if it was like somebody who was radicalized internally on their team and was like, oh, this will be a great like laugh.
I think I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I do think that person
You're
was
like, this ain't not a conspiracy. It's facts, baby.
It's facts. I think somebody was like, Trump lost, so whatever.
You're like, well, listen, if my last check doesn't clear, we're fucking moving this to that landscaping company. In between the porn shop and what was the other thing? The crematorium.
Yes. I definitely knew that the porn shop was like by...
It almost feels like the beginning of a Bob's Burgers episode. You know what I mean? How at the beginning of each episode, they have like two businesses next to like the business and they always change the name of it. Mm-hmm. Like one of them is like, get on my lawn gnomes and other garden things. Like I feel like that was like landscaping was in the middle, the porn shop was to the right, and then like the crematorium or whatever the other thing was right next to it.
Who are your losers?
Okay, I got a bunch of them. You ready?
I'm ready.
Anti-maskers.
Oh, I was good. Yeah. I mean, that's a given, but yes.
I mean, anti-maskers, or I think generally we could say like anybody who doesn't want to believe in science. This was a bad year for science in terms of, I guess, believability. But that
science was a loser this year.
Yeah, that depends on who you ask. But science was a loser in terms of people wanting to accept data and facts. I feel like the United States justice system as a whole was a giant loser. We've all kind of seen where there have been huge holes and lack of either representation for minorities in the justice system or the way that they are not equally prosecuted in the justice system. I believe most recently there was that kid who didn't he like shoot a bunch of people at God, I'm like totally butchering this. I should know his name, but you know what? I don't want to give power to his name, but he was like the young kid who like came up to one of the protests from Wisconsin. He was going to shoot a bunch of people and then he did end up shooting them or something. How he's like out on bail right now because a bunch of people were able to pay his $2 million bail. Meanwhile, the approach for, Black boys, at various places throughout the country has been, complete violence, and accosting them, and it just doesn't make sense, right? So yes. I think we as a country need to look at the justice system as a whole and kind of re-examine, everything about it, because it's clear that there are some huge, huge gaps. Next thing, this is kind of fucked, but the Senate, not impressed with how the Senate has been handling the coronavirus for the past 32 weeks. We were given only one stimulus package for $1,200. One. And I think like the math breaks down to like $2 or $3 a day or something like that. And what fucking country is that like a livable wage, right? And then going on recesses and taking breaks and not being able to, get a bipartisan deal passed. makes me feel like it's a fucking joke to them. And there are way more people who are really going through it and really impacted by COVID, whether it be their jobs, their health, their families, the middle class, the lower class. There are way more people that those Senate majority leaders and those Senate senators represent, that they need to be truly advocating for them. And right now, all I'm seeing is that they're advocating for, their best interest and who, they work for.
Well, because they're still getting a paycheck.
Yeah, absolutely. They could give a fuck less. Well, guess what? There's people out here who fucking can't feed their kids or can't do this or can't do that. It's awful. It's fucking awful. So I haven't been sleeping on that. I think about it all the time. And I just wish, both parties could get their fucking shit together and work it out, because the country needs them. That's why they fucking elected you in the first place. Sorry, hot topic. And then thirdly, I would be remiss if I didn't say the biggest losers of 2020, to me, one of the biggest, is those people who did a gender reveal party and then that started like a giant forest fire in California.
Oh, whatever happened with them? What are they doing?
I don't know, but if they're white, I'm sure nothing. And being a white person myself, I should be able to call white people out like that. So people lost their homes, animals were killed. We lost vegetation. Oh my God, my cat is literally running around. We lost vegetation, crucial vegetation. Lives were lost. It's insane the amount of stupidity
that white people have.
Well, just all people, but that exists in the world. Someone once told me, and this always puts it in perspective to me, but once I first heard this, it really blew my mind. They said, think of the dumbest person think of them, and then just assume everyone around you is half as smart as them. And that will literally hopefully tie everything together for you to understand why things are the way that they are. I'm okay. And I think that only works in the United States.
Yes.
I don't know a lot of other countries, but I think that works in the United States, because it's the lack of education. It's the lack of interest to educate, or, the incentive to educate yourself if schools and things aren't doing it. It's the media misrepresenting facts. We could go on and on, but I think those are huge losers of 2020. By no means is this a definite list. So if our listeners have any suggestions of losers for 2020, please put them in the comments. Tell us on our Instagrams, on our Twitters. We want to hear from you, because I'm sure you guys all have opinions on this.
So, to close out the episode, we are going to talk about what we want to see in 2021. And for me, I think the thing that I want to see in 2021 is people taking accountability for speaking up for themselves and saying what they need in relationships. So whether that be more communication or, just saying what you need and letting other people, like your partner or your friends, this can be applicable to anybody, but saying what you need from them to make these relationships work. I feel like this year just made me realize that there's sort of just the stigma around not asking for what you need and just accepting
the love you think you deserve.
Yes. Well, just accepting the love you think, not that you deserve, because obviously you want more, but right.
But some people will settle for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I just think that going forward, we need to be more comfortable saying what we need. And I think that a lot of people are afraid to say that. And me, myself, I feel it is intimidating to say what you need, but at the end of the day, it's important, and you'll be in a much better position when you just say what you need. So that's what I hope to see in 2021.
I definitely agree with that. And I want mine to be something like super simplistic. Like, I just want
people to wear a mask.
I mean, but if we're talking like ideal situation for 2021, I obviously want COVID to not exist anymore or be a problem. I want people to get their jobs back and life to go back to quote unquote normal, whatever that means, or be better than it was before. And I don't know, it would just be great if, I don't know, I just have this like vision of never wearing a mask again. I don't think that that'll happen anytime soon.
I don't think until at least like 2022, if we're being real.
It's just such a disconnect.
It is.
I don't know. I just, it's weird now. I don't know if this has happened to you, but when I watch shows where they don't wear masks, I think it's so weird. Like today I was watching someone feed Phil, and like he travels all around the world. Obviously this is pre-pandemic, talks to people in close spaces. They eat food together. They share food. Like they try drinks from each other's glasses. And it's like so triggering.
The mask thing hasn't triggered me yet, like not seeing that, but like people sharing stuff and like being in close quarters. Like I think about that watching TV, but like the mask thing hasn't really hit me yet.
Wild.
Yeah.
But you also wear them at work. So you're just like,
that's true. Actually, that's probably why. I mean, I'm already accustomed to wearing a mask, a majority of my week anyway. So yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I can't believe that this is the last episode of the year.
This is the last episode of the year. What number are we on?
This will be number 6.
God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
TipTea was just an idea not too long ago.
But I'm so proud of us.
I am too.
And I can't wait. I can't wait to see what 2021 brings. Maybe we'll interview Oprah. So stay tuned.
If you guys have her number, please patch us through.
Isn't she from Chicago?
Harpo Studios was here, actually near the West Loop where I live, for the longest time while they were filming the show. I don't know if she's from Chicago. I think she might be from Georgia.
That makes sense. I think you're right. I think she is from Georgia. I don't know.
But we stand her.
We do love Oprah. All right. Well, if you want to follow us on social media, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And that will be, you just search TipTea Podcast. And I think in the very, very, very near future, probably before this episode will come out, we will have our podcast on YouTube. So please check that out.
Yeah, guys, please check us out there and share it.
Please. And please rate us on Apple Podcasts. I think that's it.
Rate us everywhere. It helps.
Rate us really everywhere. Does. Tell your friends, tell your cousins, tell your baby mama. Can I give a shout out
to 2 people that I don't know who they are, but looking at our analytics, somebody in Mexico listens to us. So shout out to you if you're listening. There's somebody in Germany. So shout out to you. Thank you for listening.
That's probably Brandon.
Could be Brandon.
I think that's
Brandon. Or maybe one of Brandon's friends.
I don't. What's German?
What do you mean?
Scheiße. Yeah.
Yep, that's shit. Very nice, Robert. Very, very classy.
Thank you.
But yeah, shout out to those people. So please keep sharing these. I want to see that. That would be so cool.
We need some French followers. Oui, voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir?
That'll definitely get them to follow you.
Some Irish people.
Okay, let's hear your Irish accent.
Okay, hold on. Oh, fuck. O'Grady. I don't fucking know. I can't do a fucking. Wait. Hold on.
Oh my God.
The luck of the Irish.
Oh. You know who you sound like? Do you know who you sound like? From Holes? Madam, what was her name? From Holes, the woman that was played by what's her name? Who did
I don't know.
No, I gotta look this up right now because it's gonna fucking bother me. No, this is who you sound like. Madam Zeroni. Fucking great grandmother, Madam Zeroni.
Look.
Yep.
I love the Irish. I'm sorry I botched your...
Played by Eartha Kitt, by the way, and you sounded like Eartha Kitt, who also played, what's her name from Emperor's New Groove? Groove.
Oh, shit.
You know, that's where we're at.
I'm so sorry I botched that. Irish people.
No, I loved it. I actually really enjoyed that. But apologies to all the Irish people who listen to this.
Look, I love me some Irish men. Like, y'all.
Me too. Send them my way.
Y'all throw it down like any day of the week. The D.
Oh. Okay.
All right. Well, I think that's it.
I think so too. If we don't put out anything random between now and the new year, we hope everyone has a fabulous year.
Stay safe. COVID numbers are crazy right now. Be safe, and we will see you in 2021.
We'll see you, and we love you. Bye. Thank you for listening.